Welcome on in, everybody, to another edition of the Porpoise Pod. Tobin and Solana swimming together, gathering in the waters that is the combine. It's all happening, Solana. We don't have a first-round pick, but who cares? People lifting weights, tights, official heights. Who doesn't love this stuff?
Byron Jones, but other than Byron
right.
Jones, everybody else. I've been paying attention to the combine a little bit more just because I went a couple of years ago and I got into it by being there. Like the excitement of the NFL never actually being on pause or taking a break. It's like one of a kind to be in Indy. It's pretty cool.
I think my favorite combine moment was the alleged scandal of, did Joe Philbin fall asleep at the combine? It was like one of these things where somebody just duped it because they just took a still shot of him on Twitter. And so everybody for the longest time thought Joe Philbin was catching a nap during the combine, which if there was going to be a coach who you just was like, oh, who's sleeping? Joe Philbin.
Joe Philbin. Yeah.
His stock was already at an all-time low when it happened. So tough to go for him. But you mentioned the Byron Jones thing. That was definitely interesting this weekend where we finally heard from him after a silent year. No word from Byron Jones. What did you make of his tweets?
I mean, they were interesting as hell. Like, my first reaction was, damn. I feel for Byron Jones because his whole time, listen, on the Porpoise Pod, I've been slamming Byron Jones. So
right.
I really just felt, and truthfully, I feel like the Dolphins also, not that they were putting him on blast, but they didn't do him any favors either by talking about the severity of his injuries. It was always kind of this dance of, well, we're hoping he'll be back. And then by the end of the season, Mike McDaniel kind of would just be like, yeah, he's not coming back. But they never really elaborated on how severely injured he was. You know what I mean? Like, if he was relaying this message that came across in those tweets, which was, I can't run or jump anymore. Like, why wouldn't the Dolphins have come out and said, yeah, like he's messed up. These surgeries haven't gone well. His rehabilitation process hasn't gone well. Like, he's messed up. And the Dolphins never really took that approach. So from our perspective, everything we were seeing from the Dolphins end was Byron Jones just doesn't want to play because he doesn't want to risk further injury and mess up his future, contracts. And that upset us and Dolphins fans. But now, I don't know, like, there's clearly two different sides of what's going on. That's the way I'm viewing it. And like, I feel for Byron Jones. Some of what he tweeted, I don't agree with, where he's saying, to the young NFL players, don't take those needles, don't take those injections. It's not worth it in the long run. And like, that's easy to say when you have $18 million in the bank, right, Tobin?
Sure. Listen, I took a lot of needles and injections, and they were all well worth it. No, look, I get it. Football is a brutal sport. It is sad to see things like this where a guy is at this point in his career, and I'm sure that it's a depressing thing to be away from the game that I'm sure at one point he did like playing or was very good at playing, and that, he came to this Dolphins team with a lot of high promise, basically, gave him one decent year. And it's like, the thing that it probably was the biggest domino effect from Byron Jones was just pissing off Xavier Howard. But yeah, I don't like reading that somebody's in pain or that they don't like play the game. It's still a very murky thing because it doesn't sound like he's ready to say that he retires, but it also says, it's also a very past tense tweet. And it sounds like he doesn't have any heart of playing football anymore. It doesn't sound like he's willing to go through it anymore. And if that's the case, then, don't. It's, you want the guy to protect himself in that case because it's already a damagous enough sport. It's already, as we saw very much this year with the Dolphins quarterback, it can be a crazy thing. Your lights can get shut off. DeMar Hamlin having what happened this year. It's a crazy business that they're in. It was just I think it was just so random to get it out like that, to comment on it as almost a message, as a warning to the future draft class. And, I'm sure there'll be some people who will, either retire early or maybe will heed his warning, and then there'll be a bunch of people who say, "Shut up, old man. I want to get my millions."
Yeah. But I will say this, like, if he does want to play again, claiming that you can't run or jump anymore, probably not the best way to go about it.
Fair point.
Just saying, right? Like, if you do aspire to recover, and whether it's this year, next season, whenever it is, coming out and tweeting, hey, don't do what the NFL doctors are telling you. Also, I can't run or jump anymore. Probably not going to go a long way in having another team interested in his services. So I don't know, Tobin. I do feel like there's two sides here, right? Like there has to be more to this because even prior to coming to the Dolphins, like who knows what went on, and clearly he's like in a very emotional state right now.
Yeah, well, let's just take it from this. Like he got surgery, he got his contract guaranteed last year because of it. They restructured it in some way, to help with the cap. He has a situation this year where the Dolphins can save a lot of money on the cap, but they can't really use it in free agency because they can't cut him till June to save that money on the cap. So it's a little bit of a weird situation for Miami. They would have to I don't know, basically have a wink deal with a free agent if they were to take advantage of his salary cap number. That's the only way I could really see them figuring it out, or maybe making some trade, to bring in salary. So you have that element to it that clearly the Dolphins are going to move on from him. I would think either way, they're not bringing back Byron Jones. Then you have the case of, all right, well, what does retirement mean? Like, how much is his payment? Like, does he have to give up money? So he may just be holding his cards close to the vest. But I would say, yeah, if you're basically referring to your football career in the past and saying you can't run or jump, that doesn't really speak to this guy's going to play football. I would say either way, if he does play football again, I would very much doubt it was for that it would be for the Miami Dolphins.
No, there's no shot. There's just no way. Everything I was saying earlier, the way that the Dolphins handled this, I'm not saying they handled it poorly. Like I feel like we don't know so much, and we probably never will. But if they truly felt like Byron Jones was in this state where he can't run or jump, they would have, like, why not come out and say that? Like, why play this whole song and dance all season where you're kind of like hiding behind, this wall of uncertainty regarding Byron Jones all season long until, what was it, Tobin, week 15, week 16, when Mike McDaniel finally came out on that Wednesday press conference? Because every week the first question on Wednesday was, hey, Byron Jones, what's the deal? And it kind of became like a running joke between the media and Mike McDaniel. And finally he came out one day and was like, all right, guys, Byron Jones done for the season. I can confirm it.
I would say that my best guess is, look, if this is a guy who doesn't want to do all the treatment to his own admission, and I'm not saying he's right or wrong about it, but if he's doing that, and he didn't want to go and rehab the way that he did, I think the Dolphins are probably just in this point of, we really don't know, because we don't know when he's going to want to play. And I just think that's one of those things where maybe they have a relationship with the agent. Maybe they're just trying to save face, because it is an embarrassing thing. Like, look, for Chris Greer, like, you spent a lot of money on this guy and it's a flop of a signing, and you've already, look, we're already sensitive to this a little bit with the Armstead thing, right? It's like you signed a lot. Teron Armstead do a lot of money, and that almost feels almost like a time bomb of when that body is going to give up. And so, yeah, I think it just was a matter of everybody was just doing the cliche thing and protecting everything as they could. But all in all, he ain't going to be a Dolphin anymore. What do you make though? There's a lot of with fangs and fold, there's a lot of defensive guys out there. There's a lot of fodder out there, as far as, like, there was Pro Football Focus came out. They tied the Dolphins to Jalen Ramsey. Jordan Poyer is out here like Bills captain, safety. He is like actively out here flirting with the Dolphins. He was saying he was going to party this weekend at Tua's birthday with Mike McDaniel. Do any of these things tickle your fancy?
They all tickle my fancy. Every single one of them. Like Jalen Ramsey, are you kidding me? You compare Xavier Howard and Jalen Ramsey. I mean, I don't care how much of a step back Xavier Howard took last year. You're telling me you can have X Jalen Ramsey and then some of the young guys this year that really stood out, like, let's go. But I truthfully, I don't know, like, all the cap machinations, how you can make it work. My only thing is, Tobin, like, do we feel like there's a window opening right now for a legitimate Super Bowl run? Like that's the question, right? Do you sacrifice potential flexibility moving forward to go all in for this season that's coming up and go out and get a Jalen Ramsey and maybe not pay some of your other guys? Or do you kind of keep trying to bring in young guys at a lower price and keep building for the future? And I'm not saying 10 years from now, but you know what I mean? Like 3-4 years down the road with Mike McDaniel, like where do you think the Dolphins feel like they are? Because, man, those windows.
I definitely think it's time to take a swing at things. Like, first of all, they took big swings last year with getting Armstead and certainly trading Tyreek Hill. You got enough of a leap from your quarterback to think, okay, we can do this. And especially if you look at the AFC, like, I don't know. I feel like people made it out to be something very daunting last year. And, you know, I think it's definitely a conference that's filled with a lot of young talent at quarterback, Tua included. But between Mahomes and Burrow and Trevor Lawrence, you know, coming around the way that he did, and you know, even that bum Justin Herbert seeming like he got into the playoffs, even though he did have one of the biggest collapses in football history. And you know, Josh Allen is getting, you know, yelled at by his star receiver, but whatevs. Throw them in there too. And then Deshaun Watson, I suppose we could see what he's going to be like, but I still don't trust, you know, that he's going to be all the way back with, you know, so little football over all these years.
I also just don't trust the Browns, period. Like
Right.
they always find a way to kind of shoot themselves in the foot. I mean, you didn't mention Lamar Jackson though. Like I know.
Well, I don't know where he's going to be.
Right. I know his future's up in the air, but let's just say he ends up back with Baltimore. I mean, that's still somebody else in your way. And bro, the Jets, I hate doing this because I hate the Jets so much. The Jets are going to get somebody, Tobin. Like they are. I don't know who it's going to be. Maybe? No, come on.
Did you see there was rumors this week about bringing back Geno Smith? And and I even saw one about poaching Daniel Jones.
Oh, my God.
So maybe.
That'd be
and look,
so
Geno
amazing.
Smith was good this year, but, you know, there's something weird about going and bringing back your own bust. It's very strange.
Very, very.
It's
and
very,
you know
very,
he's not having that season that he had in Seattle with the Jets.
No.
He's just not. That would be so unbelievable if the Jets right now, they're shooting for Aaron Rodgers. Derek Carr is interviewing. He's going in for a meeting, and they end up with Geno Smith. I mean, you want to talk about the most Jets thing ever? That'd be unbelievable.
Yeah, it would be like the Dolphins move this year. Maybe if he was a little younger, being like, "Hey, Chad Henne, what do y'all think?" Like, huh? No, we were there. Well, we did that already. No. And it's even be like crazier because it'd be like Pat White. I mean, like just somebody who's just so on the blip of your history, but you just know him for that one incident. Come on back.
It's right. It's bringing. I know Ryan Tannehill had more success in Miami than Geno Smith. Like Ryan Tannehill's a much better quarterback. But I'm saying, if this year the Dolphins said, you know what, the Tua thing not working, we're going to bring back Ryan Tannehill for one more season, and everybody would be like, what? What are you talking about? You're bringing back Ryan Tannehill? No way.
But to answer your question with the Dolphins, if we're going all in, yeah, I do think there's an element to that because, you know, there's so much debate over this Tua option that's out there. And, you know, quite frankly, like that's when you pounce. You pounce before you have to pay your quarterback, and you make all the moves you can before you have to pay Tua. And I absolutely think the Dolphins should do everything in their power to keep beefing up. Like, they don't have any first-round picks this year. Part of that is because they got caught tampering, stealing, trying to woo Tom Brady again. But they have no picks this year in the first round. They'll have a second-round pick. But, you know, I definitely think that if you think you can get even giving up one of those second-round picks to go get another certified star like a Jalen Ramsey or whomever, I definitely think you should put your chips to the table. If it's out there that they could go and get a Dalvin Cook or some stud in the backfield I'm all for it. Absolutely. Because you only have so many years left before, all things being positive, let's just say Tua is healthy, before you got to pay him $40 million a year.
That's my thing. I'm with you, because my thing is, in the NFL, those windows, they close, man. Like, you feel right now, oh, you made the playoffs year one with McDaniel, you'll get back. Bro, Sperano, same thing. I'm not comparing Mike McDaniel to Tony Sperano or Adam Gase, but just think about how we felt after those seasons, right? After the first year with Adam Gase, you're kind of sitting there like, hey, this is perfect. Like, we'll be back. No problem.
Yeah. I mean, they're going to they'll close unless you have the guy who can carry it a little bit. And right now, Tua is a guy that you feel like, oh, he needs the star power, which is fine. So did, one half of the Super Bowl this year, and Jalen Hurts. It's the exact situation. They paid for a star wide receiver in A.J. Brown. They drafted a star young receiver in Devontae Smith. And they, the only difference is their offensive line is amazing, and the Dolphins is still shaky. By the way, what's your take on them getting rid of this tush push? I just said that because I want to say tush push on the podcast.
Tush push. I don't know. How do you? I don't know. I mean,
I don't want to get rid of it just because I don't want to get rid of the term tush push.
Yeah. I feel like I'm indifferent. Like, it's not even. It's not like a huge deal to me. Like.
So is Mike McDaniel. Mike McDaniel said he doesn't think they should get rid of it today. I was proud of him. I was like, hey, good for you, McCoachin.
Do you think he calls it a tush push?
No way. But I hope somebody does run that past him, because it's a great name. Speaking of Mike McDaniel,
they ran it a couple times with, who was it? Durham Smythe, right?
Durham
like a
Smythe,
couple times.
Yes, kind of. Yes, it wasn't a full tush push. It was, but yes, it was a mini version of that, less beefy. Speaking of Mike McDaniel, he spoke at the Combine today. We'll get some of his most interesting comments, and he commented on Tua's fifth-year option. We'll get to that as the Porpoise Pod swims on after this.